Welcome to the Murphy, Sam, and Jodi After the Show podcast. Be sure to catch us on YouTube also if you haven't done so yet.
One of the biggest stories in business, maybe for the whole year of 2026, we'll see, is that Spirit Airlines just abruptly shut down. Was it Saturday morning? We all woke up and it's like, sorry, folks, this is it.
We're not only canceling today's flights.
Hey, what's funny is they did it at 3 a.m. Saturday morning.
Yeah.
It's like, let's sneak this one in.
So one of the stories we touched on in 3 Things to Know today, there's so much to know here, was that there is a TikToker who created quickly the website letsbuyspiritair.com as a joke. The word is, his name is Hunter Peterson. He did it as a joke, as like a crowdsourcing thing to get to the $1.75 billion that would be needed to purchase it. Like, so, and it was the Green Bay model. You guys know what the Green Bay model is?
Don't know. No.
Green Bay Packers being the only community-owned franchise in the NFL. Like 360,000 ordinary people own shares of it, and that's how it's run and operated. And so it would be like that, where we could all own Spirit Airlines. And he set the website up, and he started asking for pledges. I think he asked like $45, which was apparently the cost of a typical Spirit ticket. That's lower than I thought. I thought they were $99.
Don't know. I've never flown Spirit.
$45.
Yeah.
Is that using real jet fuel?
But he wasn't asking for actual donations. He was asking for pledges. Let's see how far we can get. So nobody sent any money yet. But when he did this early this week, the website crashed. Like, people were logging on, and apparently the average pledge was like $800.
Wow.
So people, a lot of people were like, yeah, I want to own an airline. I want to have a community-owned airline. There is no such thing, right, Murphy? I asked Murphy because he's the business
I mean,
man.
not to my knowledge, I don't think so. But, while the crowdfunding thing is a great idea, putting that money up doesn't guarantee you that. It's not like buying shares in a business because it's crowdfunding. It's going to somebody who's collecting that money. There's no guarantee that money's going to where it's supposed to.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But
he's being praised on social media, like doing something quickly, striking while the topic is hot. It's like a leadership move. It doesn't mean it's going to ever happen.
Well, I think if anything, what it shows is there's a passion. It's a small percentage. It's a very small percentage. But like anything, if you're passionate and it's a brand you love, you're going to stand up for it. But
it's true.
But as I was learning more about this, and I was just curious too, because off the top of my head, I would assume the majority of people fly Delta, Southwest, United, or American. And sure enough, I'm correct on that. Each of those has almost 20% of the market share.
Whew.
So, the thing about Spirit is it had about 4%. And this is not sudden, by the way, too. Everybody thinks it's sudden. It appeared to be sudden, but
most things are not sudden.
No, it's not sudden. It's actually happened over a 7-year process. It was COVID that really was the first time that they incurred a ton of debt because people weren't traveling. Remember that?
Right.
Well, the other airlines recovered because they were selling premium tickets and upgrades and other things. Spirit is a budget airline.
They can't do that.
Even Southwest, right? I mean, had to raise their ticket price. It's, to me, Southwest is like Southwest is probably the king of the economy style, even though they've now adjusted and they have upgrades also. Everybody's had to kind of modify, but they've had that down to a science. They fly one kind of plane. They've had a smart business model for 50 years, and it works, and they were able to get through. But all the airlines themselves, if they don't have help from bailouts and other things like that, it's an expensive business. And when you get billions in debt, which is why the crowdfunding is going to be difficult, it's not like you got to keep that up, But, so that was, blow number one was during COVID. Blow number two was, I would have to read up, I remember there being some sort of an engine issue that grounded a lot of planes from a number of different airlines. Ew. And it grounded 20% of Spirit's fleet, so they had to cut back on the number of flights. If you don't fly, you don't make money,
Right.
And then they also wanted to merge with JetBlue a year ago, and there were antitrust rules that prevented that from happening. So they've been looking for an escape hatch for a while because they've been operating in the red. So while, yes, it was a surprise to people who were booked on the airline, which is not – it's really unfortunate that happened to a lot of people who had to rebook, But
it's just an
but it was not.
story.
There was nothing that was sudden about it,
I
at
believe
all.
that.
Everything failed, and the death knell really was the increase in jet fuel expenses. That's occurring because of oil prices around the world right now. Mm-hmm. So those are the things that that made it happen. But I think that one person, all it takes is one person if they can lead a cause, whether it's through crowdfunding or whatever, to create enough momentum that maybe a true investor will want to try to come back and bring it back while it's hot.
Some people are saying, his idea was for it to be the Green Bay model, the Green Bay Packers model, where, no billionaire can move that team, no hedge fund can, sell it and gut it for parts. So that's what he called it online, the Spirit 2.0 model. That's applied
actually a really
to
cool
aviation
idea. Yeah.
for the first time in American history was his hope and goal. And it doesn't mean he's going to shut it down, but they're nowhere near. And it's just pledges, like you said.
Yeah, it's nobody's giving any money. I mean, the thing is, if they do reach, say, $2 billion, and he goes, hey, guess what? We got enough pledges, so let's make this real. Then it's like,
who wants to run it? Who wants to be?
I pledged $800. I was just a joke. I just wanted to get in on it. I'll give you $40.
That's why I'm saying crowdfunding is not the way they're going to be able to put it back together. It could start the momentum,
right.
Do
you want
but it's not going to
fly on a crowdfunded airline? Okay, look. We have an email that came in. I'm sorry. It's a comment from our YouTube page from Logan about Spirit.
Okay.
Ready? Spirit Airlines wasn't the most comfortable, oftentimes had delays, and you paid just as much as the other airlines if you got add-ons.
Right.
The big thing here, though, is if you're just flying somewhere for a few days to see family, you could theoretically fit all your clothes in a backpack, no problem. I flew several times to see family for a $60 round trip. It wasn't always the most comfortable, but Spirit always got you there safely. And 34 years, no fatalities. Yeah. Producer Faith looked that up. It's true.
Wow.
They had no fatalities. I like to think of, this is from Logan, I like to think of them as public transportation, but with wings. But they are no more now.
$60
Logan.
round trip? Lord.
Well, I remember there were friends that told me that exact same thing that he's saying, though. Because because you literally did pay for everything that wasn't a seat. And so if you could travel without booking luggage, you were golden. You'd get that cheapest ticket.
Right.
But think about that. If the ticket's $60 and it cost you $50 to pack up, to book a bag, well, you've already almost doubled your airfare right there.
But that's how they can offer could offer the low price thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. It makes sense to me that it's all very expensive. It's a really expensive business to run.
Yeah.
They also had this thing that came out this week about which airlines are top in customer satisfaction, and Delta did come in very high in every part of the surveys. Just they've got that down. Mm-hmm. But they're the bigger ones. You
remember ValueJet?
Yeah.
ValueJet in the 90s was one.
And remember that.
Well, and unfortunately, they did have a fatality
Wasn't
in the
that
situation.
The Everglades one?
Yes.
Yeah. But look, that's a whole it could happen to any, and it has. Almost every major airline has had that over 100 years worth of flight, and I think that was the first one. There are always new FAA rules that come out of these things, and I think that one had to do with either like oxygen tanks or something like that. And as we know, there have been other issues. The whole reason for the lithium batteries thing now is because there was a jet that had an issue with that. I don't remember if it was being shipped or whether it was. I don't think it was in somebody's bag, but all of these new safety rules, they come out of those things, and so that's one reason that air travel is truly safer now than it's ever been. But smaller airlines like that have always either been gobbled up by the others or gone out of business. I mean, United Airlines, remember, is a combination of United and the old Continental Airlines.
I would not know that.
You don't remember that? Yeah.
No.
And after the ValueJet name kind of got tarnished, they rebranded as AirTran, and then Southwest basically bought AirTran. And when you buy that, you rebrand it as your jets, and now you've got more routes. You're buying routes when you do that.
I started reading an article this week about it. I know we touched on it in the show a couple of times, but I got confused. It was a confusing, article explaining all the planes that they own. Like other airlines will also be looking to grab those, but a lot of them were leased also.
Well, most airlines lease their jets. Most airlines don't own their jets.
And it's just an interesting. There's so much to consider and to know about it.
Who do they lease them from? From
they're large.
Boeing
they're large holding companies. I guess the best way to. I mean, this is I've not done a ton of research on this, but they're basically like venture capital groups and investors. It's big money crowdfunding, if you want to call it, but they're investors that, groups that own the planes, the jets, the whatever, or they fund them, and the airlines typically lease them. It doesn't do
big business.
Yeah, and a big business will tell you that something like that, because you're talking about multi-million-dollar jets, and because everything devalues over time, it's not a smart business model for an airline to own a jet.
Because then what are you going to do when it's time to upgrade? Or
same thing like when when you have a car. It's yes, eventually you own the car, but think about what happens to a car that's 10 or 15 years old, and then translate that to air travel. You want to be able to upgrade, modify. You want somebody else to bear the responsibility for whatever it is they need to do to keep everything flight worthy. So that's why my understanding is that's why they do that.
Murphy loves to talk about aviation. Look, every time we get on a flight together, he's always telling me about the jet we're on, and how my most unfavorite thing is when you do tell me how old it is. This jet is blah blah blah. I'm like, I don't want to hear that. I'd like to hear that it's new.
Well, all those things that's what's crazy about these apps now. You'll immediately know what the tail number is, everything you want to know about the history of that jet, who actually owns it. And look, I do think the airlines there is some ownership of some jets, but most of these fleets are actually leased. And that's how they refresh their fleets when it's time to, swap out or whatever it is that they want to do. But you can find out all of those, things just on the apps like Flight Radar. And I'm trying to think of what the other one is Flight Aware.
Flight Aware. That's the one I see you using all the time.
Yeah. And
on the flight.
Yeah. And that's really, I think that's how the news media is able to track everything, that when you see information immedially on flights and tail info and all that kind of stuff, there's the same kind of tracking for trains and ships. That's the reason you're seeing all this, when you see these, whatever it is that's moving in the Strait of Hormuz,
numbers.
It's the same kind of an app, that tracks all those things. But that just fascinates me on a jet.
There's people online that track like Taylor Swift. Wherever she flies.
Her
Taylor
personal,
Swift
her
flew
private
from here
jet.
to here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then she flew back from here to there. It's like, okay.
Wow, I know.
Yeah, I think I'm just kind of a goober when it comes to the air travel.
It's a good thing to have an interest, though.
My dad was so into aviation. That's why that was, interesting to me. And I don't think you were on this flight with me, Jodi. I don't remember. Excuse me. I was on a Southwest flight where they announced that the plane was literally being retired right after I landed. Yeah,
you told me. I was so glad I wasn't on that plane, but it was a fun thing, right?
Yeah, it was great. It was Southwest, and
good airline.
I love the major airlines. They're all good. Southwest, though, has that personality thing, and they were just kind of celebrating that. So this jet that I was flying on, this has been about 5 years ago, was put into service in 1983. So it had been in the air for 40 years.
That baby needed to retire.
Now, it had been, it didn't have Wi-Fi, it did have props.
Did
I'm
have
kidding.
Seatbelts?
Probably had the little ashtrays on the handles still.
All right.
What'd you put in there?
Yeah, no. So those interiors get upgraded and changed. The only thing that I could tell is that it was, older engine and stuff. So when it took off, you could smell the, the exhaust. I remember that as a kid. I remember, like at the airport when you'd watch your plane take off, you would see the plume of smoke from the engines. Emissions control, it's much better now. You don't see that coming off the back of a plane, or a jet now. But you could. So I would smell that, and the engines were a little noisy, and it didn't have the wingtips on it, so it made the flight a little more bumpy. There are a lot of modern, enhancements to jets, but it was kind of cool to me. It's like, oh wow, this is great. Well, for a moment, I was thinking, oh, is this a good thing?
I know.
I'm on the last flight. It's about to be mothballed. And actually, they don't wind up always being mothballed. They wind up being rehabbed and sold to, other countries and that sort of thing.
That's my next question, my obvious question. What happens to an airline's plane when it's retired? Are they sold for parts?
Yeah, I think it's all of those. It can be that, but there is some of these large, wide body jets get retrofitted. I've heard about like 747s that get retrofitted for, I'm not going to use the correct terms for royalty of, I don't know the term.
Just like Air Force One.
No,
for other countries.
But like for Saudi Arabia. Yeah. You're talking about multi-billionaires and, in the Middle East.
Upgrade, you mean?
Yeah. Well,
okay.
they'll just modify them and customize them, for them. Or, or some of them go into service, for other airlines in other countries. And so, look, as long as they're maintained, I guess they get to an age where you don't fly them anymore if technology gets better. But, at some point, yes, they become those are kind of like, if you've ever seen a website that has pictures of planes that have been mothballed, it's kind of
graveyard.
It's sad to look at. Yeah.
They don't have an airplane thing like they do for cars where you can go pull your own parts off, huh?
I don't know the answer to that either.
You mean like you work for Delta and you need
I need a front wheel assembly. Let me go to
if you're listening to this or watching it on YouTube and you know any of these answers, let us know. We love hearing about it. And thank you again, Logan, for that comment about Spirit.
Missed any part of the show? Get it all on the Murphy, Sam, and Jodi podcast.